On this episode of the Mothman and the Bible Belt podcast, West Virginia music. Is it all hee-haw banjos and country western, or is it predominantly rock? To help answer that question, I have Dog Soldier and Goldtown singer Justin Johnson and DeadFaceDown guitarist Chad Fisher. Johnson and Fisher give insight into West Virginia's eclectic music scene and talk about their current music endeavors. Coming up next.
Welcome to the Mothman in the Bible Belt podcast with your host, Buck Fantastic.
Girl Scout cookies.
West Virginia has been stereotyped to death. Our accents, way of life, politics, and taste in music and cuisine are things of myth and legend. But let's talk music. Sure, West Virginia is predominantly known for churning out country western music acts like Kathy Mattea, Brad Paisley, Asleep at the Wheel, and Lionel Cartwright. But the Mountain State is also responsible for heavy metal band Byzantine, Christian pop recording artist Michael W. Smith, and art rocker and bongwater singer Ann Magnuson. On this episode of the Mothman and the Bible Belt podcast, West Virginia rock musicians Justin Johnson and Chad Fisher talk about West Virginia's predominantly rock music scene and what sets the scene apart from city to city. The West Virginia Rockers also dish on their 80s music collaborative effort with Jamie Skeen and Nathan Shrewsbury. Many of you might have caught that yet-to-be-named quartet's latest music video for Hungry Eyes on Facebook. Justin Johnson and Chad Fisher dish on that Eric Carmen cover, this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees, Madonna's new look, and the state of rock and roll. Join me, your host, Buck Fantastic, for another exciting episode of the Mothman and the Bible Belt podcast. It's eclectic chit-chat of otherworldly origins. Chad and Justin, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm doing good. On Valentine's Day, y'all released a music video for Hungry Eyes on Facebook. It's blowing up. What inspired y'all to cut the track and make the video?
Justin, you want to take it or do you want me to?
Well, I guess to go back, probably what was it, Chad? I'd say the end of August.
Yeah.
Chad reached out to me on Facebook, and me and Chad have known each other for like 20 some years and probably been aware of each other for longer than that because, where we grew up. I guess we'll probably get into that later, but he sent me a message. Another mutual friend of ours and a musician named Jamie Skeen was putting together this Randy Rhoads tribute, the deceased guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne. And Chad reached out, wondering if I'd be interested in singing on a song. It was Revelation, Mother Earth. And so we got that together. And through the evening, the course of, cutting the vocals on that track, me, Jamie, and Chad were, in the room together. And we just kind of started talking about, just what it's been like to be in this scene and to be playing music in this region for the past 20 years. And we thought it might be kind of a cool idea to maybe cut, knowing that we had some talent right there at our fingertips, some great talent, I must say. We thought it'd be cool maybe to just try to put out some tunes that people remember, that make them feel good. And Chad was like, man, he said, I've been wanting to do Hungry Eyes. And I was like, I'm game. Let's do it.
And you come from a metal band, right, Chad?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yep. For like over 20 years.
And you chose Hungry Eyes.
Man, I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that song for probably close to 20 years, but I've always been a sucker for like the 80s songs with all the memorable choruses and the killer hooks. And that was just always a song that I thought in my mind. I already had it planned out, like how I'd want to do it for many years. And I was like, man, it seems like the perfect one just I don't know. It just seemed like it was one of the ones that was good when it came out, but it could have been modernized, and a lot of the parts accented on it to really stand out, and that's what we tried to do with it.
Who all played on Hungry Eyes besides you two and Jamie?
Nathan Shrewsbury played drums. He's also a fellow Sissonville guy. He plays in a punk band called The Jerks in Charleston, a popular band. He's played around the scene as long as we have it.
So are y'all fans of Eric Carmen and the Raspberries, or just the Dirty Dancing soundtrack in general?
Man, that soundtrack's awesome. I mean, I remember when I was a kid. I mean, I don't know. It's just, like I said, I've always been a guy who loves the catchy choruses, and just, I love the 80s stuff like that. I've always liked it.
Oh yeah, I was a top 40 kid growing up, and I just remember, watching once Dirty Dancing came out on video, even though I didn't even understand half of what was going on. I mean, our parents pretty much just let us watch anything when we were kids, and but I love the music, man. The music was great. It's still great. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. It stood the test of time. I mean, just like how I think one of the main reasons you said that song kind of blew up when we did is because people remember that song. I mean, all ages. I mean, it's just one of those songs. If you might not have heard it for 15 years, but as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh my God, I remember that song. And that's, I think that's the fun thing about it. And that's why we tried to pick some of these songs along those lines that do that to people, because you haven't heard them since the 80s,
That soundtrack was a perfect mix of new music and old music.
Oh yeah.
Making it work.
Mm-hmm. I love the Swayze tune too. She's Like the Wind. Oh
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
And of course, I've had the time of my life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What name are y'all giving to this musical collaborative effort of y'all's?
That's a good question.
That's a fair question. Absolutely, man. It's
we don't have one.
What is so great about this is that it's literally just been about us wanting to pump out music. I mean, before we put the video out a couple weeks ago, Chad was texting me. He's like, dude, we don't even have a name. Like, we're not even like a band, and here we are. We've got songs planned, and we haven't quite got there yet. I mean, we're really it's kind of interesting for us just to like kind of put ourselves in a space where we're actually getting to put out some content.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, most people don't know this. We have not all been in the same room at the same time together.
No.
So when we recorded this song and when we recorded the Ozzy song, we never seen Nathan. He was in there on a separate day. We never rehearsed any of this. I mean, we have never had a single rehearsal. So basically, we picked what song we were going to do. Everybody learned their parts at home. We went to Jamie's studio, knocked out the recording session one by one, and Jamie, being the wizard he is, I mean, made it all work. So I mean, we haven't even been in the same room together.
Jamie did my podcast music.
He told me that. Yeah, he did tell me that.
I asked him for Elvira Meets Heart, and he did it.
Oh, I'm sure, man. He can do anything. Very, 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 very talented guy, man. Very talented. Yeah.
Virtuoso, man. I mean,
genius musical talent by far.
I heard you all are working on more 80s tunes with musician, producer extraordinaire Jamie Skeen. Can you drop any details?
Yeah, actually, we just put a little post up today. The next one we're going to do is Don't You Forget About Me from Simple Minds from the Breakfast Club soundtrack.
That's awesome. I like that song.
Yeah.
It's on my playlist.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a great tune, man.
Any chance that this collaboration will result in a full-on record and some live tour dates?
Probably not a record, because it would be a touchy slope as far as, copyright. Yeah, all that stuff. But I mean, like Justin, we talked the other day. I mean, I could definitely see us maybe doing a show. I think that would be fun once we get a good set down, just to see how it would go over live. Don't you, Justin?
No, absolutely. I think I think everything's just kind of wide open right now. I know that I talked to Jamie the other day. Um, the way that I understand it, when you do cover tunes and then you release them digitally through either Spotify or Apple Music or wherever, there's a mechanism built in when you do a cover tune that pays the royalties where they need to go. It's not a huge issue. I think it does get different when you start releasing physical. Um, I don't really know about all this stuff, so I may be talking out of turn, but
The
but
licensing can be complicated.
yeah. So with the licensing, but I think Jamie was very interested in maybe putting the collection together and releasing it digitally so that people can have it and put it on their playlists and things of that nature. I definitely would like, once we get a good handful of tunes. I mean, it's like this, man. If there's a demand, then you never know what could happen. Right now, we're
Yeah.
just having fun recording them, but I mean, if people keep attaching themselves to it, and it's something that we can do where we're not just playing at a bar in Charleston till 2 o'clock in the morning. That's kind of been the thing too that me and Chad really talked about. We've just done this for so long, and sometimes when you haven't reached the people or been able to develop the fan base that you could develop, after a while, man, playing in a scene starts to wear on you, and we're getting older, and just the idea of being out in bars till 2 or 3 in the morning just doesn't appeal to me anymore. I know that.
Yeah, I agree.
Chad.
Yeah.
Is Dead Face Down over? Is there any chance for a reunion, or has everyone just completely gone their separate ways, or did COVID dig in, or what happened?
No, nothing happened really. I mean, kind of what Justin went back to, man. We played for probably 13 years, and I think we just kind of felt like we did all we could do with it. I mean, we were fortunate enough to go to New Jersey and record an awesome album with major producer David Bendis. He did all the Breaking Benjamin and Papa Roach, Paramore. I mean, all these crazy popular bands, and we went and did an album with him and had an awesome experience with all that. Came back to Charleston, but still kind of got back in the same groove. And I just we never say never. I mean, on shows, I mean, we will do a reunion show here and there. I mean, we've played probably 2 shows in the past 3 years, for one of our really good friends who passed away, unfortunately. And we done just a normal reunion show and had fun with it. But I mean, yeah, I mean, everybody still gets along great and all that. I mean, Steve is playing in a band called Messenger Vessel now in Charleston, our drummer, really awesome heavy band. Jason's playing, our other guitar player has Crown the Witch, another awesome band. So, I mean, everybody's just, kind of did our own thing for so long with Dead Face Down, and it just kind of ran its course. I mean, like Justin said, you can only play at the same bars for 15 years so many times to where it just kind of gets, the same old. And as far as the scene, man, I mean, a lot of the people who used to go to shows around our age have kind of moved on, whether they're married, have kids, this or that. And there's just, I don't really think there's been a new crop of younger people to make a new scene, if that makes sense, like there used to be, 10, 15 years ago. And I just think that's hurt a lot of bands in this area. And plus COVID on top of that, man. I mean, people just got used to sitting at home all the time because you can watch movies at home. You don't have to go to the movie theater. You can buy music at home. So I just think, stuff has been too easy now, and people don't really have a reason to go out.
What was the music scene like in Charleston 15, 20 years ago?
I mean, it was awesome, man. I've always said, if there would have been talent scouts from New York or California or something here back in that time, there would be a lot of millionaire musicians in Charleston area. I mean, we had, Justin and I started. I played in Shore Throw, and Justin played in the Low Man's Lyric. What, Justin? 01, 02 is probably when we both started those bands.
Yeah, 01's when we really started moving with them.
Yeah, and I mean that's how we kind of met. I mean, both of our bands together had a really awesome PA system. And,
Yeah.
we just none of the bars even had a PA system. So I just remember we would book shows anywhere and bring our own PA, and that's just we were playing somewhere every weekend, man, and that's just how it used to be.
How does the music scene differ from Charleston to Huntington to Morgantown?
Justin, you want to chime in on that?
I spent some time in Morgantown. Well, I went to WVU right out of high school, and then I came back around here about 2001, beginning of 2001, and then I went back to Morgantown in 2006, 2007, and we played Morgantown, we played Charleston, we played Huntington, did a lot of stuff regionally, and it is a little different. I mean, I guess to compare, they're all cliquey. They all have their cliques, and they have their boys clubs, and one thing that's similar with all of them, I feel like you've got to just know the right people. And
I think that's always how it was in Huntington.
Yeah. But I mean, we managed. We played. I didn't play the V Club with Lowmans, but I played the V Club with Dog Soldier, and we played. I mean, a half dozen different venues in Huntington, Stone Monkey, the V Club, and I can't. Gosh, it's been so long, man. I can't remember.
Yeah, a lot of those Huntington bars are different names now.
Yeah, they are, and but it was still kind of similar. I mean, I can't. It was really weird. I mean, there were some nights, like I remember when I was in a band called Thirst, and we did a battle of the bands for Regatta, and it was us, Shore Throw, Split Nixon.
Yep.
And there were was there two more bands?
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember. I remember the show, but I don't remember. I remember Split Nixon was there.
And we played at the Sound Factory. It used to be Club 8, what was it, 812?
812, yep.
Back in the day. And man, it was asses to elbows in that place. I mean, it was packed. There were people everywhere. And they were a great crowd. Honestly,
and that place had a 300 person capacity too.
Yeah, I mean it was crammed, and actually I kind of thought Shore Throw got robbed that night. I thought that Shore Throw should have won. I think Split Nixon ended up winning, but and then we could play a month later and there'd be 15, 20 people show up. It was just when it hit, there were times that Shore Throw and Lowmans played a place down in St. Albans called Escapes Nightclub. Yeah. And we were on bills with Byzantine in the early days, Boba Flex. And that there was a couple nights in there, Chad, if Chad remembers.
Oh, yeah, man.
I mean, it was a big nightclub, and it was
downstate. Remember those guys, man?
Yeah.
Is it impossible to be a full-time musician in West Virginia?
No, I don't think it's impossible at all right now. I think that if you gotta work and you gotta stay busy. For me, what happened, I always had a vision, or I always had a plan, and but my daughter was born in 2015, and I just really, my family is my priority, and when she was little, I was a school teacher, and so, and I lived in Jackson County. That's another thing. There's no scene in Jackson County, so you've got to be in Charleston. You've got to rub elbows.
So there's no place to play in Jackson County?
The Yacht Club. And it was a great venue in the mid, from 2010 to probably right before COVID, and they're trying to get, they're getting more out. They bring in the Davison brothers, and we played there a good a handful of times with Dog Soldier and Goldtown, and but that's really it. I mean, there have been a couple places that had some open mics that would be really hopping for a while, and because Jackson County's not without its share of talented dudes either, and
For sure, man.
girls and guys. I mean, just talented musicians in general. But it's just not as metro as Charleston in regards to just population and venues and things of that nature. So,
You were talking about the scene earlier. One thing, I mean, Justin probably remembers. I mean, we would just book a show 20 years ago somewhere, and we had all of our own equipment. And I mean, Justin, where do we play in Ravenswood? I mean, we just randomly played at this gymnasium.
The NYA Hall. And we showed up in there. It was an all ages show. You had to it was connected to this old historic building called the McIntosh Building. And it was just like a big like Chad said, just a big gymnasium with a stage. And we hauled our equipment in there, and man, we had a great turnout. I mean, it was just, but it was different too then. I mean, people would come out to shows. They don't come out like they used to. And I think, the COVID's got a lot to do with that. And I think that just things are different. There's not, live music is not a priority for a generation below us. Everything's more content centered and trying to put things out on the internet and such that way. At least it doesn't seem like it. Now, I can't speak for other places because I haven't been there. Maybe there are some younger acts that are really like local, up and coming acts that are playing live and doing the things like Chad and I used to do, or still kind of do. But I don't know.
Do you think more outdoor venues would help with COVID? I mean, before COVID hit, the red carpet was moving outside.
I went to the Byzantine show up there, man, and it was a great turnout. The only thing about outdoor shows, it seems like, if you don't, you have to have it in a big area, and if you don't have a lot of people there, it's kind of a failure from what I've seen.
And you got to have a draw, like Byzantine's a draw. I mean, you want to talk about just a massively respected band across just, I mean, I guess we could say international, I mean, just, and so they draw, but, and, then the red carpet, I think had, Soul Asylum, and was it Head PE? Was that what? No, it wasn't Head PE.
No, I can't remember the name of the band.
But it was one of those 90s groups in the same vein, and it was a draw, so it brought people out. But I mean, I don't know. It does get frustrating because when you know how talented you are and you feel like you have good songs, and then you still feel like that sometimes maybe people just don't come to see you because you're local. You know what I mean? It's like,
sure,
well, we can go see these guys anytime.
When many people think of West Virginia music, they think of hee-haw.
Yeah, I think it's the complete opposite.
Do you all think we're more rock centered than we are country?
I honestly can't count on one hand enough country artists that even have came. Well, I mean, famous, Brad Paisley and people like that. But on the local scene, I mean, you really don't hear of that many country artists. I think one reason because they really don't have anywhere to play. I mean, if you think about it,
right?
There's not very many country bars to play at around the Charleston area. You have the casino, stuff like that. But I mean, as far as they just haven't had a place to play, like in the downtown area, Charleston, like where the rock scene used to be. I mean, I remember you could go, we would play a show at the Sound Factory or Blue Parrot one night, and you could walk around the corner before you played and go watch 3 other bands that you were friends with before you even went on stage. I mean, it just used to be constant.
That happened all the time.
Man. You could do that. Yeah, you'd play at the Sound Factory, and then you'd go next door and see Halogen at Julie J's, and then you go down to Parrot and see, Thirst or who. I mean, it was just how it was, man. There was probably 20 bands easy in the Charleston area at that time. I mean, great talented bands.
Yeah, really good bands. I mean, just solid, tight bands.
Justin, what's the best West Virginia venue you've ever played?
Best venue I've ever played.
In terms of atmosphere, environment, attendance, overall good vibes.
I would have to say, I mean, we had a lot of fun Saturday night, and I'll tell you that live at the shop is a great venue. Larry's done a great job with that venue, and if he keeps it up, there's going to be some regional to national acts that are going to stop in there, and because it's just a great venue. But that being said, that there wasn't a huge turnout, and it's got the potential. But I would have to say, man, it would have either been. Chad, you might agree with this. I would have to say like 2003, 2004, or to 2008 Sound Factory.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking of, the Sound Factory, man. I mean, there was nothing like, you had the stage, it was 7-8 feet off the ground. You had the professional PA. I mean, it was, yeah.
You had an area in the back where you didn't have to be out. And like for me as a singer, I like to be away, before I sing, because when you're in those bars, man, your ears will get shot, and then you're talking constantly and your voice will get shot. And it's just, sometimes it's just nice. And they had one of those areas, but the place, there was just always people there. It was always, there was always a vibe about it. And, I mean, that Battle of the Bands was great. We played one night there with a national act that had come through, a band called Copper. I don't think they do much anymore, but at the time they had a hit on like X106 out of Huntington, and they came through and we opened up for them, and it was packed and it was a great atmosphere. That's what I would have to say. Right now, I don't know, man, to be honest. I don't. I would like to get into that venue.
Man, I would say the Sound Factory also, because I didn't consider it a bar. It was more like actually a concert venue in my eyes. I mean, I love the Blue Parrot, man. We were actually like I think the first band when I was in Short Throw, we were the first band to ever play on that stage because everybody used to play at the Sound Factory. And I think we just happened to go around the corner one night because it was a dance club upstairs, and downstairs it was a normal bar, and they just happened to put a stage in there. And I think we just left them a CD and it's like, if you guys ever decide to have live music, we'd love to play. And I think we were literally the first band to ever play on that stage, man. And Justin and I, both of our bands wore that stage out over the years, man. I mean,
the Blue Parrot, we had some killer shows there too.
Yeah, man. Tom was the guy, Tom Krause ran it at the time, and he was so super nice to all the local, and that's another person that I think all the local musicians really owe a lot to.
Who's the biggest name in terms of musical acts that your bands have ever opened for?
Justin, you want to go first?
I'm going to think about that one for a minute, Chad. Because I mean, we have opened for people. I mean, we played with some people. So,
man, for us, let's see. I think I don't know about I mean, we played with Non-Point, Head PE, Stuck Mojo, Exodus. But, Sound Factory had a lot of bands come through, man. And I mean, a lot of heavy bands at that time. And then the Monkey Bar in Huntington. So we just got lucky and got on a lot of those shows. Played with Karma to Burn a lot. They were from Morgantown. I mean, but they're nationally recognized. I mean, they play, I think, Download Festival and all that stuff. I mean, but yeah, back in the day, man, I mean, there was just a lot of national bands that come through this area. And, the Monkey Bar in Huntington used to have national bands every week because that's kind of a hub from Ohio and Kentucky on a lot of these big tours that they would stop through. And the same thing with the Sound Factory back in the day.
Justin?
Yeah, one of the bigger experiences that I guess we had with Dog Soldier was right towards the end. There was a group, there was an outfit out of California that came in, and they were called Smith and Pyle, and it was Shawnee Smith, who's an actress out of Hollywood, she was in all the Saw films. She was the female lead in all the Saw films, and she was in Summer School also, which was one of my favorite 80s movies. And and Missy Pyle, who is just a character actor that has been in 100 films. Dodgeball, she's been in like I think like Grey's Anatomy and a bunch of different
Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest. Yeah, absolutely.
And Bringing Down the House.
Yeah. So you know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And but they had a common connection. There was a guy from Spencer who moved to LA and got into PR work, and he met all these people. So their backing band was Matt Dozat was one of the guitar players. The band's name is Smith and Powell. Matt Dozat was one of the guitar players. He played with like Kelly Osbourne and a couple other people. Franz Stahl, who actually replaced Pat Smear in Foo Fighters. Whenever Pat Smear played his last song on top of Radio City Music Hall, and they replaced him with Franz Stahl. Franz was the other guitar player. A guy named Dutch was the bass player, and he had been around and played with a lot of different groups, and the drummer also. So we played with them. They came to the Yacht Club here in Ripley, and we played with them at the Yacht Club, and then they actually asked me to go around and play the rest of the dates with them that week as a solo acoustic act. So that was pretty big time for us. I mean, for us and for me, because they were like legitimate people that we'd seen on television and seen in movies. Like I said, we opened up for Copper, band called
Justin,
Copper.
did you know that guy, the singer of that band, is the guitarist for Breaking Benjamin now?
Is it really?
Yeah.
He was a really nice guy.
Keith Wallen, yeah. He still does. He releases solo stuff too. But yeah,
really,
he's from Beckley.
Is there a lot of rivalries among West Virginia musicians?
I don't think that's one thing. No, I mean, there's never. Everybody just had fun. I mean, you go downtown to a bar and watch a band play, you always run into people. I mean, no, I mean, we just, I never seen it, never know of anybody who really did.
I think in Charleston, the bands were also eclectic and different. Like, even though, like, you look at, like, nobody sounded like Shore Throw. Downstate, then there was, like, Rosclot, and all these different bands who were all considered heavy or hard or metal, and Byzantine, but none of them sounded alike. So
that's true.
I mean, I guess there could be like some, there's always a little bit of competition and a little bit of strutting around. And then, with us, it was always hard for us to find people to play with because it was more of a metal scene. And we weren't really metal, but we weren't like jam bandy either. We were like, we fit right in that alternative rock like groove, and it was hard sometimes to match up. And we never. I don't remember there being a whole lot of jealousy. I mean, for us, it was just hard because even with the guys from Sissonville, you're still not in Charleston unless you can be in Charleston every night. Back in the day where you could be in these venues and talking to people, that just for me, that's how I felt like it. That's how you really were able to get yourself into the bigger shows. And two, you could be more present and have the opportunity to play more often, and more people would come because more people would hear you and listen to your stuff and like your stuff. And for us, we come in, play a banger show, and then you wouldn't hear anything from us for 6 weeks because we were all back in Jackson County.
Did y'all play Common Grounds in the 90s?
I did. Yeah, I played there twice.
Chad did. Yeah, I was not privileged to do that.
I was in, let's see, probably 9th or 10th grade. That's actually the time I met Jamie. And to bring it back about the bands, the competition, man, what I was going to mention too, I think everybody really respected the talent of every other band because everybody was just good, no matter what band. I mean, everybody, I mean, you couldn't really have a rivalry because what could you say? I mean, every band was good. I mean, just the talent was, and everybody just knew it. I mean, so I think that's another reason too, man. Everybody just respected everybody.
Yeah.
But to go back to your Common Grounds point, yeah, I played there twice, man. It was before I had my license because my parents dropped me off with my equipment, picked me up after the show.
And this was on Summer Street
Yeah,
in Charleston?
I think the Common Grounds coffee shop, I think the guy Bob Weir was his name, ran the place. Yeah.
It was a
Played
real
there twice,
popular
man.
hangout
Oh
for
my
young
God.
people when I was in junior high and high school.
Yeah, if you actually go on YouTube, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but there's like a 2 or 3 part documentary about Common Grounds on there, and it has probably 45 minutes worth of show footage and just people going through and doing a little documentary holding a handheld video camera about that place, and it's really cool to go back and watch.
That's awesome.
My classmates Justin Azevedo and John Cavendish used to play it.
Yeah, my buddy, Nathan, our drummer that did the Hungry Eyes with us, his band played there all the time. I mean, he was Richie Ray from Shindig, another Sissonville guy, man, awesome musician.
Yeah.
They played there a ton. I mean, back in the Common Ground days, it was more the punk scene, and that's right when the hardcore stuff started coming out. But I mean, you had a lot of the ska and punk bands played there a lot.
What got y'all into music, Justin?
Man, I always was drawn to music. I remember my mom and dad, being in the car, the radio was always on. It was either on, Super 102 before it was Electric 102. And then there was, WQBE. My dad had these, he had records. He had Heart Records and Fleetwood Mac. And
Same with my parents.
yeah. And I remember one of the things that really, I had this old record player in my room. It used to be on mom's, and one day there was an Elvis record in there, and it was I think it was the Elvis Moody Blues album. I know there was a band, the Moody Blues, but I believe that the Elvis's album was called the Moody Blues, and it was a blue vinyl. And I remember listening to it, and I would just sing, and I just would sing along, and then. And, in middle school, I really, really got into, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, and I really got into Boyz II Men. It was actually my first concert when Boyz II Men came to Charleston with Brandy and Subway. And those were that was the stuff that I kind of taught myself to sing over was, Motown and R&B and stuff like that. And I liked rock because if it was top 40, if it was on the MTV Top 20 countdown, then I was aware of it. Probably my favorite singer of all time is Chris Cornell, and of course I knew that he had done Black Hole Sun and things of that nature, and same with Eddie Vedder and the stuff that was on MTV. But it wasn't until probably, I don't know, 2001, 2002, do I really sat down and went back and listened to that whole grunge catalog. And
Same here. I didn't get Nirvana when they came out. It wasn't until like
either.
10, 15 years later that it's like, this is some good music.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually, I hated Nirvana when I was a kid.
I did too. I still do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's something, and there's a lot of their stuff that I listen, and Kurt Cobain enamored me. I've watched a couple of documentaries on Kurt. I've read there's a great book called I think it's Heavier Than Heaven. A great book. It was written by I think it was written by a private investigator, but it was a great book. I read it, and the whole story of Nirvana was very interesting to me. But at the same time, I never just jumped into Nirvana like a lot of people did in that time period.
I was into classic rock. I mean,
Yeah.
that was Poserville to me, Everybody was into the grunge scene, and I was completely anti-establishment in junior high and high school.
Right.
I still am, but you know.
Oh shit! I lived in Goldtown, man. I was so backward and sheltered and naive that I didn't know what establishment was. I was like Rage Against What Machine? What machine are they so mad at? You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't until, I don't know. For me, I had to hit some life and get out of the bubble, and then the anti-establishment really set itself into my hardwiring at that point. But yeah, I'm the same way, man. I was just, oh, this sounds good. I like it. You know, that's the way it was. I don't have any like deep, you know, like the guys we listen to, they're always like, you know, they start naming off these punk bands from New York that you haven't heard of, and the B-side stuff, and that's what really got them started. And it's like, nah, man, first album I ever, or the first cassette tape I ever bought was Thriller, and Camelot Music at the mall, and I took it home, and my tape player ate it. Um, and so my mom took me back to Camelot, and I got Bad, Michael Jackson Bad, and you know, it's always been, I've always just really loved pop music.
What about you, Chad? What got you into music?
Man, this is going to be the most random story ever, but I still am, or was a huge old school wrestling fan when I was a kid, man.
Yeah.
And
Cyndi Lauper?
Yeah, not really her, but like, I was a huge Road Warriors fan, man, and they had their intro music was Iron Man, and I was like probably, I don't know, I mean, 7, 8 years old. So I kept after hearing that song all these years, I was like, man, I really like that song. Who sings it? Well, I found that song on the cover of an Ozzy Osbourne, Randy Rhoads tribute live album at the record store. And I ended up getting the tape, and that's how I got into Randy Rhoads being my favorite guitarist, because I used to sit with my Walkman and listen to that tape front to back. And I said, well, I would maybe want to start playing guitar. So my parents agreed to buy me a trumpet so I could be in the grade school band. Well, that didn't last. It lasted probably about a month, if even that. So my grandma and my parents got together and bought me my first guitar, which I still have. And I just started playing guitar and taking lessons in probably 4th grade. And that's how I got my start, man. I started my first band. Well, didn't start it, but started playing in a band with some people probably when I was in junior high. We played a grade school dance. And then here we are today. I've never put it down.
What's your thoughts on the state of rock and roll today? Has it gotten too pop?
Man, I think everything nowadays, I think everything is just so crazy. Like, everything that's popular now that everybody's into is just something kind of new that nobody's really done before. Don't you agree, Justin? I mean, like,
yeah, I think we're just in this digital age where you're able to make so many different sounds that, you know, back, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you had to have actual, you know, musicians who specialized in some different instrument that now you can program and do things with. I think that there's probably more music out there now that's accessible than has ever been, and there's some great bands that sound that are in the same vein of the stuff that we do, and that, you know, that have followings, and you may never hear about them in West Virginia, but they're touring, they're getting streams. So I think that it's popular music is different. The machine is different. I think what they're trying to, the audience that they're trying to reach and the messages they're trying to put across popular music wise is a lot different than the stuff that was popular when we were coming up and learning our craft.
What new music are y'all listening to at the moment, Justin?
That's a tough one. I mean, stuff comes, and I think that's kind of the thing too. New music sometimes where everything's so single oriented now. You know, we come from an era where the album, we listen to the album and we attach to artists because, you know, if they put out an album and we'd listen to it from start to finish, and there were songs that weren't released on the radio that we would attach to and things like that. So there are things that have come across that I enjoy, but I found myself not attaching to anything new like I attach to things at more formidable points in my life, if that makes any sense. So it's really, that's a hard question to say that is there a group that I'm just really smitten with. I mean, they're not new, but I took my daughter when she was 2, she really liked Paramore. and I took her to see Paramore when she was 2.
Wow.
And it was when After Laughter had come out, and I mean they're top 5. And I've seen a lot of bands. I know Chad has too, and they're top 5, one of the best live bands I've ever seen in my life. So, but even at that, I mean, I don't know. I can't really think of anything right off the top of my head.
What about you, Chad?
I actually have really gotten into Asking Alexandria and Motionless in White recently. Both of those are pretty heavy bands, kind of not heavy, but I like it because of their vocalists, man. Their vocals have really, I mean, super talented vocalists. They can scream and sing great melodies. So I've gotten into those bands in the past year probably. And of course, Cold. I've always been a huge Cold fan. Got to see them live up at Rock City Bakery like a year ago, man. And just, like I said, I always like something with a good catchy melody with a great memorable chorus.
Dolly Parton has covered a shit ton of rock and pop tunes over the years, including Collective Soul's Shine, which won her a Grammy, Katrina and the Waves' Walking on Sunshine, REO Speedwagon's Time for Me to Fly, The Fine Young Camels, She Drives Me Crazy, and also a killer cover of the Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. She countrified and bluegrassed the numbers. Are you all hyped about Dolly Parton going all out rock and roll with the likes of Stevie Nicks, Ann Wilson, and Paul McCartney?
Oh, Dolly can sing the phone book. To me, there's not even now. There's just not a pure voice. I think so. You know, when you got somebody like Dolly, I think Dolly can do just about whatever she wants, and I don't think anybody's going to have a stitch of problem with it.
Chad?
Same thing. I mean, a lot of people from that era, man, they can just do no wrong when it comes to music. I mean, they're legends.
Yeah, I'm hyped. I just learned a few weeks ago that Dolly is recording Stevie Nicks' What Has Rock and Roll Ever Done For You, which was originally slated for Tango in the Night. It's a great song. It's on YouTube, and I can only imagine the wild shit Dolly and Stevie are going to do on it. I think it's going to be really great. Is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame crazy for inducting hip-hop and country acts versus, say, a new wave rock act who's been waiting for years like the B-52s?
Man, that's a good question, and I hear it a lot on the radio and on podcasts. I personally don't have an issue with it because, I mean, if you go look and go through a tour of the place, man, it's cool to see everything there. I mean, I don't think it would be half as great if you just went and saw rock and roll stuff. I mean, there's a ton of Michael Jackson stuff. I mean, I went last year. I think LL Cool J got inducted last year. It was cool to see his stuff there. NWA, the rap group, I was always a huge fan of them. I mean, so I think people just like to complain about stuff no matter what it is. So, I mean, I don't see the big deal of it. I mean, just call it the Music Hall of Fame. I mean, if they want to get that technical, but I don't see an issue with it at all because it's just history to me.
What about you, Justin?
I'm with Chad on that. There are obviously some rock groups, like you said, that I believe deserve to be in. I think when you've got a first wave pioneer, like you said, with B-52s, who are even so much more than just Love Shack or Rome or the hits that they had specifically in the 90s. But, I still am kind of trying to figure out how Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and even Foo Fighters are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but Soundgarden somehow isn't. And my argument would be more against some of the rock bands that are in versus some of the other rock bands that aren't in. And I know that people, say, well, these bands may be in if it wasn't for the fact of, putting people like, NWA or even, country stars that are being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I feel like rock and roll isn't just a music. It's an ideology. It's more of I hate to say lifestyle, but it's just kind of it's an ideology. It's a way you view things. It's a way that you choose to express yourself, and you don't always have to have distortion. I mean, how can we say that Elvis is the king of rock and roll and then compare anything that Elvis did to Jimi Hendrix or Metallica, but that's all considered rock and roll. You know what I mean? So I think that, like Chad said, that these people are legends. They're legendary, and their impact on culture is I think what they're being inducted for more than anything.
Who are you
Have you-
all hyped about potentially getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year?
Man, I tell you what, my dream come true last year when Randy Rhoads was inducted, and that's why I went. So he's in there, and Kiss is in there for me. So that's really all that and Judas Priest got in last year. So that's really all. Who's even up this year? I can't even remember.
Kate Bush, Sheryl Crow, Missy Elliott, Iron Maiden, Joy Division, and New Order, Cyndi Lauper, George Michael, Willie Nelson, Rage Against the Machine, Soundgarden, The Spinners, A Tribe Called Quest, The White Stripes, and Warren Zevon.
Man, that's a crew. That's just the inductees, though, right? The ones that's
the nominees. That's all the people that could be inducted.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you could argue with one person on that list being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I love for Cyndi Lauper to get in. I've been a fan of hers since she came out.
That was the one. Yeah, she changed a lot back in the early 80s. And like you were talking earlier, she was in wrestling a lot, too. I mean, she's done a lot.
For me, I definitely think that Soundgarden's got to be there. At some point, they got to put Soundgarden in. I thought, once Chris had passed that, they would get a posthumous nod, and they still haven't. I think if I had to vote, if I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame website and I would vote, it would be Soundgarden, George Michael, and Tribe Called Quest out of that group.
What about you, Chad?
I think Iron Maiden would be at the top of my list just because of their longevity and their their contribution to heavy metal over the years. I mean, George Michael should definitely be. Cyndi Lauper. I mean, that's the way I view it a lot, is who contributed and who changed the way kind of deal. I mean, as far as the actual Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean, because that's a huge accomplishment.
I love to see Warren Zevon get in. Big.
Yeah, the fact that Warren Zevon isn't in, it's just one. And Willie Nelson. I mean, Willie Nelson. I mean, God,
Willie Nelson's not in.
No. Yeah, I mean, Willie Nelson is. I don't care how whether it's anything that he's done and the way that he does it. There's nobody more rock and roll than Willie Nelson.
He's covered a lot of rock songs.
Absolutely.
I love that song he did. He covered Peter Gabriel's "Don't Give Up" with Sinead O'Connor. It was awesome.
Oh wow!
Have you all been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
It's on my to-do list.
Oh, you need to go.
I have not.
You both need to go.
I've always wanted to go.
It's awesome.
Okay, I have a few more questions. Who wants to do the speed round? I wrote Chad about this last night. Chad said that you'd love to do it, Justin.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. When did you give your soul to Satan?
The pass. No, I haven't. I won't give my soul to Satan. I'm too good a guy, dude. To be honest, I know there'll be probably people who argue with that, but I have not done that and do not plan on doing that.
Who would you rather tap, Madonna, Cher, or Tina Turner?
Tina Turner.
What's the worst song in the history of rock and roll?
Give me a minute. The worst song in the history of rock and roll.
Man, could I answer that real quick on my end?
Sure.
The Safety Dance song. I hate that song.
Right now, it's either Shattered by the Rolling Stones or something Great Heights by the Postal Service.
Was Grace Slick wrong to retire after the 1989 Jefferson Airplane reunion record and tour?
Yeah, I don't think Grace Slick is interesting because it's one of my dad's favorite singers ever, and I don't hate Starship.
I don't either. They put out some great songs.
I mean,
even if they didn't,
there's nobody in this
write
world
them
who doesn't bob to Built This City or Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Yeah, dude. So I would have to say sometimes people just know when to shut it down, So I would say no.
The public went nanners over Madonna's new face at this year's Grammys. Should people lighten up, or has Madonna gone too far? She looks a little bit like Dead or Alive's Pete Burns before he died.
Oh wow. Being someone who was, jeez, it will. I'm getting a visual in my head right now. It's kind of messing with me a little bit, but I really appreciated Madonna in the 80s and the 90s. From and even after Material Girl stuff, Like a Prayer is still one of my favorite songs. The song she did for A League of Their Own, and just a number of things. So I don't know anybody who wasn't attracted to Madonna in the 80s and 90s.
What about now?
Man. You know what? There's something to be said about a person who allows himself to age gracefully, in my opinion. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Her sister Melanie, who's just a few years younger than her, she doesn't look like she's been touched by the scalpel, and she looks great. She's married to singer-songwriter Joe Henry, who's written a few of Madonna's hits.
Oh, okay.
He wrote "Don't Tell Me,"
Mm-hmm.
"A Jump," and "The Devil Wouldn't Recognize You."
Is that a song?
I think
Or
the
you
devil.
just
I think
saying
that is I think it was on the Hard Candy record.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Debbie Harry. The thing is, Debbie Harry got a facelift 20-some years ago, and you didn't even notice it. I didn't notice she had a facelift.
Facelifts are one thing, man, but what people are doing to themselves now with what they're
fillers.
injecting, the fillers and all that stuff. Come on, man.
Even Stevie Nicks is doing it.
I know, and I hate that because I love Stevie. I remember when they did that comeback tour in like 1997 or so, and Silver Springs, they released Silver Springs, and that video, just watching her just cast spells on Lindsey Buckingham, I don't know, man. I don't know how, you just wouldn't be completely enamored with her.
Outsiders love boxing and West Virginians, but our music tastes, albeit concert going or record buying, are diverse and lean more rock. Within the rock spectrum, you got a big mix of hard rock, alt rock, and metal popular in West Virginia music venues. Our big money-making acts may be country western, but our heart is pure rock and roll. I want to thank my special guests Justin Johnson and Chad Fisher. Check out their music video for Hungry Eyes on Facebook. Their cover of Simple Minds' Don't You Forget About Me is coming soon. For Mothman the Bible Belt podcast outlet updates, guest bios, episode breakdowns, and links to social media, check us out on the web at www.mothmaninthebiblebelt.com. Thanks for listening.